Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 25th of Feb 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, Sony claims to be betting its sales of the PS4 on so-called true gamers. Dota 2 adds player-created in-game guides. The developer of Hell Yeah! Wrath of the Dead Rabbit has ceased game development, and BioShock Infinite in a pre-order bonanza on Steam and Greenman Gaming. CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment America, Jack Tretton, has spoken to CNBC on the kind of audience that the PlayStation 4 is looking to attract, as well as their business model and plans going forward. He claimed that there are more gamers than there have been before, and those gamers want AAA titles enough that they'll justify buying a new console in order to pay them, and he believes that people are willing to pay if they see the value there, especially if you're someone who considers themselves a true gamer and wants to play the most powerful devices and the most deep, enriching gaming experiences. Now, he went on to talk about the fact that an awful lot of people that are playing video games right now are playing very low on the so-called food chain. He actually referred to this directly. He said, you're not going to find yourself migrating down the food chain when you want to play the most powerful device and the most deep, enriching gaming experiences, other than maybe to kill some time or complement your core gaming experience. So his idea is that once you get up to a certain level of gaming, you never really want to back away from that. You don't graduate down, you don't downgrade to something like Angry Birds or something more casual. You continue to play core games once you're into them, and that's something that you kind of graduate into eventually. Now, Gama Sutra seemed to believe that this wasn't a particularly good idea. They were actually highly skeptical of his idea, and quote the article, in fact, and this is an interesting discussion, I feel. They said, Tretton's comments left us scratching our heads and wondering if he's living in some parallel universe where the retail video game console business is thriving. Wasn't it just last year that we saw a 24% decline in retail game sales in the US and numbers even worse in the UK? Wasn't it last month that the Wii U saw a performance so miserable that its third month sales, when average per week, were worse than any of the previous generation's machines had ever seen in the last 86 months? And what of Sony's own Vita? If players purchased expensive machines based on games with high production values alone, why did Sony have to reduce its sales forecast twice since launch? Okay, well, it's very easy, I think, to base this whole the sky is falling philosophy on stuff like NPD sales charts that do a pretty piss-poor job of telling us exactly where the money's going when it comes to digital games. And NPD doesn't take into account massive stuff like League of Legends or free-to-play games across the board, which is actually a really stupid thing to do, because if you read those NPD sales figures, then what you're seeing, apparently, is consumers moving towards cheaper digital content and smaller games, yeah? Stuff that on mobile devices, stuff on iPhones. Yet, there's an unbelievable amount of money being thrown at free-to-play titles, and League of Legends is probably one of the biggest. In fact, it is one of the biggest. Huge amounts of money being thrown at one of the most hardcore games there is, and don't you even start with, oh, LOL's not hardcore. Compared to Angry Birds, it bloody well is. Compared to a lot of games, it is. There's a lot to learn in any MOBA game. It doesn't matter which one you're talking about. Sure, there's probably less to learn in LoL than there is in Dota 2 or anything like that, but they're still hardcore games relative to everything else, and yet there's a huge amount of money being thrown at that kind of stuff, and these sales charts don't show any of that. And you might say, oh well, all that means is that PC games are doing pretty well in certain respects and console games are doing really badly. No, it doesn't mean that at all. I mean, if I'm totally honest here, I feel that this whole idea that, oh, the Wii U is doing really badly, ergo that means consoles are on their way out, or for instance that the Vita didn't sell very well, it all comes down to one basic core thing. It's not about buying games on production value alone, it's about having games. Neither the Wii U or the Vita right now actually has anything worth buying. Since the release of the Wii U in America on November 18th, there has not been a single release on disc for that system which is worth buying. Not one. There have barely been any releases at all. I mean, it's actually crazy. This thing has been out for more than 3 months, and you want to know which games on disc have come out since then? Let me tell you. Let me give you a list. Marvel Avengers Battle for Earth. Sucks. Rise of the Guardians, a film tie-in game. Family Party 30 Great Games Obstacle Arcade. No, I'm deadly serious. Also, Cabela's Dangerous Hunts, Repeller Pro Bass Fishing, 007 Legends. I might add that all of those are actually ports, if you can believe that. Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, Zen Pinball 2, and Fist of the North Star Ken's Rage 2. There's been The Puddle and The Cave on the eShop, which are, of course, games that are already available on other platforms. That's it. That's the lot. You've just described every game. Wow. I mean, are you surprised that no one's buying the system? There's no games for it. Let's talk about the Vita. Let's have a look at that too, shall we? How many decent boxed Vita games have come out since December? Well, not many. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed. Earth Defense Force 2017 Portable. And I think that's it. That's actually it. Everything else has been digital. Yeah, stuff like Knit Underground. Let's Fish Hooked On, maybe. I guess that might be a boxed game. Everything else, stuff like Rocket Birds, Hard Boiled Chicken, and things like that, it's all been digital. There's no games for either of these platforms. This is why they're not selling. You cannot look at the Vita and Wii U sales figures and come to the conclusion that console gaming is dead. There are no good games to buy. People buy consoles that have a lot of good games on them. The Vita has the problem of having a bunch of good games which are already out on other systems. The Wii U has the problem that, aside from some launch titles, it doesn't have any good games to play. I haven't bought a game for my Wii U since it came out. Now, I'm going to take the view that, honestly, if the PlayStation 4 launches with a strong launch lineup and with immediate titles following it up, like we don't have the drought, this is the thing you want to avoid. The Xbox 360 had the drought. What happened was it released, and then everyone basically had to make do with the launch titles for months until Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, Fight Night Round 3, and Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion came out. Those were like the three big games for that system. There was also Dead or Alive 4. That kind of popped out at a weird time about a couple of weeks after launch for whatever reason. But aside from that, you had to deal with the launch lineup, which wasn't that great. So people held off on buying this system. Why would you buy it so early if there aren't any games for it? The same thing applies to the Vita, the same thing applies to the Wii U, and yes, people will buy if they know that there's good games for the system. If this thing has an Infamous game, a Killzone game, a game by the guys that did Crash Bandicoot, a really good racing game, and maybe a couple of other decent launch titles, then I feel, yes, people will buy this thing. I feel that they will. I don't think the backwards compatibility is going to help it, but I don't actually see any real evidence that people just don't want to play proper games anymore. I really do not. Are people less impressed by games these days on console? Well, you bloody well should be. Most of these things aren't even running at 720p. They're upscaled. It's just not very good. These systems have been around for a very, very long time. You need to enthuse people about core games again. I might point out that core gaming is thriving on PC because it is able to stream ahead with all sorts of new business models and all sorts of new graphical technologies, whereas consoles are sitting in the dust. Once that stops happening, I feel that, yeah, people will get back on board this bloody thing again. Do you know how many people own consoles? Well, we know that there's been 76 million Xbox 360s sold thus far. We also know that last month alone, they sold over 250,000 new Xbox 360s. The PlayStation 3 has sold around 75 million or so as well. According to Microsoft, there are 46 million Xbox Live subscribers. That's quite a significant number. I don't know if that's Xbox Live Gold, or if it's just accounts, but if you say subscribers, I have to assume Gold. God, there's no wonder they're not actually shutting that service down. Bloody hell, you got 46 million people paying $5 a month for the privilege of using their internet connection. That's incredible, really. It seems to me that you can look at the sales figures in a lot of different ways, and then you just don't see how healthy things actually are. You want to look at unhealthy, look at the 6th generation of consoles. Yeah, this was supposedly when the consoles were in their prime. Worldwide sales figures of the PlayStation 2, 150 million units, yeah? Most successful console for the home ever. I'm pretty sure the DS sold more, but you get the idea. You want to know how many Xboxes were sold? 24 million. You want to know how many GameCubes? 21 million. Number of Dreamcasts? 10 million. Compared to our current sales figures, where we 99.38 million as of the end of last year. So almost 100 million Wiis have been sold. 75.9 million Xbox 360s. Approximately 77 million PlayStation 3s. Now, are you seriously telling me that this is what you would call unhealthy? This is what you would call the decline of the games industry, the decline of the console industry? Are you insane? I mean, have you seen those installed user bases? It's just mad to even suggest that people don't actually want to play consoles or play PCs or just play regular games anymore because of stuff like Angry Birds. it is absolutely nonsensical. Retail sales figure decline doesn't tell the whole story, NPD figures do not properly cover digital sales, and PC isn't even factored into this bloody thing. So, seriously, it's just an insane idea when we've had such a massive spurt of growth on the PC scene, and we've got the most installed users ever on Steam. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, it's 3.1 million people currently online on Steam. That's nuts, and that's actually at a late time. The Europeans are asleep right now. Insane. It peaked at over 6 million users today alone. God, that's crazy. So before we go declaring the death of the games industry and that their attitude is wrong, can we just for a second look at what this attitude actually represents? The attitude is, we're gonna make a system for core gamers and we're gonna release a bunch of good games on it, and we think that's enough to sell the system. Well, gee, what a revelation. Turns out, if you release a bunch of really good games on your system, people want the system. My god, my analysis is incredible. Someone should hire me to wed Bush. So let's see if they can pull that off. I like the attitude. I like the fact that it's not, well, we're going after the casual gaming demographic this time around. It's like, no, we're going for the demographic that plays proper games, that pays $60 for a game, that plays those games and buys DLC and wants good game experiences. And we're gonna give you that. Well, that sounds fantastic. Where do I sign up? That sounds like a great idea. I'm sorry, but I like that attitude. God, I'm praising the attitude of Sony of all people. Are you kidding me? I mean, they've had so many faux pas on their PR in the past, and I've hated their attitude in a lot of different things, but it really does genuinely seem like they've wised up a bit. And unsurprising, they have had their ass kicked over the past couple of years. They should have wised up. So hopefully they've done what a sensible business has done, which is learned from their mistakes and made something good. So here's hoping they have. Valve has added player-created guides directly into Dota 2, which is a much-requested feature and has now been put live with the latest patch of the game. This allows you to essentially browse hero guides for your chosen hero, as well as vote on various guides and pick the one which will hopefully suit your build the most. The guides are fairly easy to access. They simply require a quick button click to the top left of the screen, and you will find a set of guides to your liking. They're overall pretty good from what I've seen. They're definitely not too bad at all. I mean, it's essentially a kind of glorified browser window, but they format it in such a way that it's fairly easy to read. I just wouldn't spend too long looking at it because you're supposed to also be playing the game. I doubt this is necessarily going to replace stuff like the Dota 2 Alt-Tab guides, which are really good 30 to 60 second guides before the game actually starts for a particular hero, but hopefully they will certainly help in basics such as skill order, which can actually make a huge difference. Currently, the recommended item system within the game is for the most part pretty good, although there are some annoying aspects of it whereby the build orders just don't make any sense, or some of the items are not exactly designed and fit for purpose. But it seems like they're slowly getting to the point where the game has a better means to tell its players how not to suck. I suppose the main problem is going to be that you're trying to convince people to actually read the guides in the first place. And secondly, which ones do you trust? There is an in-game voting system, but I can see this being very, very easy to manipulate, especially if a bunch of people think it would be extremely funny to upvote a guide which was just designed for novelty or complete nonsense. So we'll see how this turns out. I have dipped into them a little bit, and I did certainly find some helpful information. And I think that the more information you put into the game, which allows people to find out how to play it without actually having to leave the game and go to a website, the better educated and hopefully the more competent your player base is going to be, which is of course something that you want when queuing up solo. Last thing you want is a bunch of morons on your team, or TotalBiscuit, because I heard he's terrible as well. Developer Arkedo Studios has announced, unfortunately, it will not be making any more games. The development house behind Hell Yeah! Wrath of the Dead Rabbit, which was published by Sega, claims that the studio will be remaining open. However, there will not be any new games developed outside of the two unannounced finished titles that have yet to be published by the studio. The creative director Aurelian Regard, which that is the best name I've ever heard in my life. Aurelian Regard. That sounds like a fantasy novel. He said, Arkedo, the company, is still there, but no one's actually employed anymore. No games will be produced either. It hasn't closed down, it's not bankrupt or going into administration. It's interesting for the structure to still be here, as after Hell Yeah, we made 2 small games which are finished, but you're not aware of them yet. We hope to release them soon. It should be fine on this side. Well, you're right, that is a weird bloody situation. So, the studio's open, nobody's working at it because you're not developing anything, but you have 2 games that we don't know about yet that you are probably going to release, and that... What? This is kind of ridiculous. However, it seems that he claims Hell Yeah, Wrath of the Dead Rabbit was actually too big a project for the studio, saying, "The game has a lot of things we love, but also things we regret, because we didn't have enough time or experience and we reached our limits. It's no big deal, but one needs to learn something out of it." That is so very strange. It really, really is. I don't really know what's going on with it, but it is certainly a shame that Hell Yeah didn't seem to do all that well for them. I thought it was a pretty good game. I think I got about 2/3 of the way through the game before I sort of abandoned it in favor of other things, but what I played of it I really liked. I mean, the minigames got a little bit repetitive after a while, but there were a reasonable number of them, so it was hard to really get too mad at it. I liked the mechanics, I liked the art style, music was good too, combat was fun. It was just in general a pretty good time, you know, it reminded me very much of Jazz Jackrabbit, and it had a lot of nice references here and there and cool stuff like that, so it's unfortunate. It's kind of sad. I want to see what else is coming from them. I'm genuinely curious, but it's so weird to say, yeah, the studio's still open, but nobody's working at it, and we have 2 games that you don't know about that we might sell you later. That's so odd. And finally, BioShock Infinite's pre-order bonanza has begun. I say bonanza for a very good reason, because there is a lot of competition between 2 big retailers, Green Man Gaming and Steam, as to where the pre-orders will actually happen. So at Steam, you can take part, I say take part, in a 3-tiered pre-order system. This is something that Steam has been doing for a while. Don't really like it all that much, but they're doing it anyway. And this allows 3 tiers of pre-purchase rewards based on how many people actually pre-order the game. So tier 1, you get a free copy of BioShock, which everyone and their mother already owns because it's been on sale for like $3 5,000 times. Reward 2, you get a bunch of Team Fortress 2 items, because Lord knows you didn't have enough hats already. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items. And reward 3, which is the biggest deal, is a copy of XCOM Enemy Unknown, which is still at this time a full-priced game, which is kind of a big deal. Currently, at the time of speaking, they are 25% of the way to reward number 2, so it looks like it's going to take a very, very long time for them to reach it, assuming they even do. I really don't like tiered pre-orders. It's like, yeah, you know what you should do? You should contribute to the greater whole by throwing money at something sight unseen, in the vague assumption that you might end up getting to tier 3 and getting XCOM Enemy Unknown. I mean, really? Are you serious? It's like, it's gamifying a really nasty business practice, in my opinion. I am super unhappy about that. Now, the Green Man Gaming pre-order incentive, basically you pre-order it through them, and what you get is the Industrial Revolution Pack, $15 in Green Man Gaming credit, which you can use on something else, and a free copy of either BioShock 2, Civilization 5, The Darkness 2, Mafia 2, or Spec Ops: The Line. You also get a free copy of the original BioShock there, so you are getting 2 free games when you pre-order. That's kind of a big deal. I mean, that's a fairly significant bonus, I suppose, especially in comparison to the Steam one. Some people are going to get mad because I'm going to encourage you to get it from Green Man Gaming. I know for a fact that the game BioShock Infinite actually uses Steamworks, so if you buy it from Green Man Gaming, you are not going to have to worry about it being on Steam. It's going to be on Steam anyway, by default. It is a Steamworks game. So you can get a better deal here and not have to essentially gamble. Let's be honest, that's what you're doing. You are gambling on the prospect that you might get XCOM, if there are enough pre-orders. Bear in mind, this thing's been available for several days to pre-order now. It's been consistently top of the sales charts, only got knocked down by the fact that there's 33% off Black Ops right now. And it's still only 25% of the way to reward number 2. We have no idea, because they don't tell you how many. Yeah? It's completely obfuscated. It's hidden. They've gamified this. And I'm gonna be totally honest here. I hate it. I really hate it. I absolutely dislike this system here, because it is encouraging people. It's almost like peer pressure, because you encourage your friends to pre-order because you want to make it to tier 3, and everyone hypes up everybody else in order to do it. It's like, pre-order the game, please. I want my free copy of XCOM. You browbeat other people. It's horrible. It is a really nasty system. If you're going to participate in pre-ordering the game, at least pre-order it from a site that is actually guaranteeing you something. Now, I've got nothing to say about BioShock Infinite right now because I haven't played it, neither have you. The PC port is supposed to be pretty good according to what PC Gamer has seen of it so far, but we don't know that for certain. If you're going to pull the trigger and you're going to pre-order, then at least think about Green Man Gaming. It seems like a much, much better deal. Why roll the dice on something you don't even know you're going to get? It's just crazy. I think, honestly, Valve has made a pretty big mistake with this tiered pre-order thing. I don't think it's healthy. I think that it encourages a really, really bad attitude within consumers. It encourages consumers to go and push other consumers into dropping money on a game sight unseen. I'm also interested in what happens if a bunch of people mass cancel their pre-orders like a day or two before release, because you can do that. You can cancel your pre-order on Steam, which is a blessing. You have to contact them about it, but they will let you do it. Does that set the bar backwards? Do people decide, oh great, right, well we're never going to reach tier 3, so we might as well pre-order from Green Man Gaming for the free games? Or do consumers then pressure people saying, oh, you've got to pre-order because I want my free XCOM? The principle of this thing disgusts me. Even if this isn't all that harmful, chances are BioShock Infinite's going to be a pretty good game, but we still don't know for sure. It looks good, but how many games have looked good and ended up actually being a bust for whatever reason? I don't recommend purchasing games sight unseen. I especially don't recommend doing it if the only reason you're doing it is to get a shot at maybe getting a free copy of XCOM or some TF2 items. That's pretty much gambling. Alright folks, there you go. Thank you very much for watching the content patch. Just want to remind you there won't be a Blood Bowl roundup this week. I just have not had the time. I'm really sorry. I'll probably do a shorter show at week 3. Turns out that the Splodge show it takes so much time. It was really negatively impacting my schedule and I was losing the opportunity to do a bunch of other videos for you, and I just can't commit to it. I'm sorry. I tried, but I failed on that one. I screwed up. I really did. So I hope that you can accept my apologies on that. But there will be a week 3 roundup coming once all of the week 3 games have been played, which will hopefully be within the next couple of days. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you next time.